Let's see what happens. This certainly yesterday was a big step. Let's see what happens if John Bolton does, in fact, testify. His attorney was in federal court yesterday for another client, but suggested that John Bolton would also ask the federal court system whether he should comply with the subpoena or not. I suspect they will tell him to do that, and then that testimony actually could be extraordinarily significant. But Jim VandeHei, I want to circle back to what Ed Luce said before, talking about this being a post-literate America, Donald Trump being a post-literate president. And you heard the president's reaction yesterday to the vote, talking to several different people, and still tweeting about his, quote, transcript, when he knows it wasn't a transcript. The top of that memo said it was not a transcript, and we have found out ever since it's not a transcript. Are Republicans running down a whistleblower and just another horrendous act, trying to reveal the identity of a whistleblower whose claims have all been verified first person by key principles in this act itself? And yet they are behaving as if Donald Trump supporters are illiterate. They are acting as if Donald Trump supporters are too stupid to read. They, of course, are not. But this is a post-literate president who has time and time again, even this week, lied about what's been going on in Washington, D.C., trusting that Americans will be too busy or just disinterested in actually reading what's on paper in black and white.
You started this segment with a beautiful, deep history lesson, both for the world and for America. But the piece of history that matters most right now is the last 15 years, in the post-cable era, in the post-social media era, in this era where we've moved away from people who don't share our political views. We are so deeply tribal. And color me skeptical, I never thought any Republican was going to vote to actually open the inquiry. And I don't even, and this isn't popular on cable, isn't popular on Twitter, I don't know what Republicans people are talking to when they think the dam could break in the Senate. Mitt Romney is the only one who's saying stuff critical, and you got to pull teeth out of him to get him to talk critically about the President of the United States. Yes, there might be a swing state Republican or two that might feel pressure to buckle, but you got to get to 20 Republicans in a party where the president's favorables are 80 or 90%, where he's more popular than most of these senators in their state. And you're going to tell me that 20 of those senators, even if everything you just said is true, everything that we know, I can't see hardly any of them splitting from the president. That is just the sad state of American politics, where it's so tribal, especially on the Republican side, that they feel like they're not going to turn on Trump because they will. Mitt Romney's been very honest about this. If you turn on him, you will be primaried. If you turn on him, you will probably lose. That is the lesson of the last 4 years. So when people say, this is different, people have been telling you that for 4 years. It's actually never different. The outcome has always been the same in the Trump era. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but until I see Republicans substantively break with the president, say it publicly, vote it publicly, I'm going to continue to the default option that, no, they're with him through thick and thin. His favorable numbers have not moved. His popularity among Republicans has not moved. And by the way, we keep showing that impeachment number, that more and more people want him impeached. Ask Nancy Pelosi about the polls they're looking at in the swing districts, in the swing states. They don't say the same thing. They say that it's actually upside down. Fewer people want him impeached. And so we're just in this weird political moment, and I do believe social media, cable, polarization has made us tribal, and this is our reality till it's not.
Yeah, and John Meacham, it's interesting. Jim's exactly right. It's a state of things right now. This was also, though, the state of things in, say, October, early November of 1973. This was actually the state of things in early summer 1974. And I know that. I've told the story often about my father being a Nixon supporter and believing it was a conspiracy going back to the days that he went after Alger Hiss. The tapes came out. My father had enough and said, if this man's done half of what this suggests, he is unfit to hold any office. And of course, we're not going to get there. But I do wonder, though, talking about the age that we're in, I do wonder if we're in an age now where the only thing that could threaten Donald Trump would be a Cronkite moment on Vietnam, asking what the hell is going on in Vietnam after Tet, except this time it's a Fox News moment. It's a Rupert Murdoch moment that breaks the tribalism at some point. I'm not saying it's going to happen,
normalizes.
But I am saying that until more people at Fox News actually confront the constitutional crisis that we have in front of us, confront the fact that a president of the United States has decided to twist U.S. foreign policy for the purposes of digging up dirt on a domestic political opponent, that tribalism continues.
That's a really good point. Are we in an age where Sean Hannity is Walter Cronkite? Let's just pause there and see if we can get some drinks to get through that. But it's an interesting test. You know, I think Jim's got the data. He's got the numbers. It's like what Earl Long once said, you know, what are you going to do now that the feds have the bomb, you know? So Van der Heij's got the data. I will say that if we'd been having this conversation 100 years ago, almost exactly, 1919, we would be in the middle of Klan fervor. 2 to 6 million Americans joined the Klan. The 1924 Democratic National Convention had 347 Klan delegates. They went to 103 ballots because they wouldn't vote for Al Smith, the Irish Catholic governor of New York, because anti-Catholicism was seen as the Sharia law of the age. You know, and there were some institutions. The press did the right thing. The Supreme Court did the right thing. Even Harding and Coolidge made the right kinds of noises. So there are these, we're always in a fever until we're not. The rise of the Klan took about 14 years to settle, to rise and then fall in the 20th century. The McCarthy era took 4 years. We went from Lincoln's birthday, 1950, to the end of 1954. You mentioned Watergate. I understand that the infrastructure may be different in terms of our information, but it's hard to imagine that we're hugely more intrinsically divided than in an era like 100 years ago when we were moving from agrarian to industrial, urban to rural to urban, and radio was coming along, which was a disorienting technology and anti-immigration. There was a governor of Georgia who was a member of the Klan who said, we need to build a wall of steel as high as heaven to keep immigrants out in 1920. So we have been in these moments and we've come out of them. The key is, how do we come out of this? And I think we have to do it by, as you say, some Republicans, some people who have been in the Trump camp saying, you know what, we have to follow our better angels and not our worst instincts.
And that infrastructure, that media infrastructure we're talking about today is very different because it allows lies to fly around unchecked. And you have a presidency that's promulgating the lies or even saying, get over it. It's a completely different landscape. So speaking of Fox News and people stepping up, the question is, will we have more people like this? Take a look.
It was a lot more than a phone call. It was a coordinated campaign, and what you've heard from Bill Taylor and Fiona Hill and a number and Colonel Vidman and a bunch of others is that this was a coordinated campaign by people outside the regular diplomatic channels of the State Department to put pressure on Ukraine to do certain things, to investigate the Democrats from what they did in 2016, to investigate Biden, that preceded the phone call on July 25th and followed the phone call after July 25th.
So, Willie, of course, Chris Wallace always telling it like it is. And, of course, before Shep Smith left, but there's Bret Baier, Judge Napolitano, others who do that. But it is, again, there are certain certain people who talk to Trump followers, who follow actually Trumpism, because they know that's where a lot of their supporters come from, a lot of their listeners come from. And Judge Napolitano for Fox News said proof of Trump's impeachment offenses are plain to see, with the process soon to be as Republicans have demanded, and with proof of impeachable offenses plain to see, which they are. To what will the president's allies resort to as a defense? So, Willie, again, it's interesting. We're all sitting here talking about Fox News or Twitter or Facebook. That's what we're faced with right now. But you and I, since we've started this show, I mean, the media landscape has changed radically even since then. It's going to change radically again over the next 5-10 years. So this. What we are confronting today is not going to be with us forever.
That's right. And Chris Wallace and Shep Smith, before he left Fox News, and Judge Napolitano and Bret Baier, and there are others at Fox News who will tell the truth when that's called for. But the idea that Sean Hannity or anybody in primetime at Fox News, which are the people who fire up the Fox News viewers and fire up the president's base, are going to turn on President Trump, I think is preposterous. Sean Hannity is effectively the president's communications director. So the people who are watching Fox News aren't going anywhere. But I think the appeal, as John said, is to, if the evidence supports impeachment, some of these senators who may have supported Donald Trump all along, who may be in a swing district, you listed some of the names. The question for them, and forgive me for being an idealist, is did you enter the United States Congress to pledge fealty to a man, or did you enter the United States Congress to pledge allegiance to the Constitution? And if you see something that's bad for America, if you see something that's counter to the Constitution, is it not your job to act on that, to vote on that? Again, if the evidence supports it. And if you get voted out, you get voted out. Is your job as a senator or a congressperson so precious that you will work against the country, work against the Constitution to keep it? No job is worth that.
No.
It's really not.
No,
Jim
it's so true. It's so true.
Jim Vandehei, thank you very much.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.